If we look at the profession of teaching, there is whole shift from the old professionalism where the old professional, the teacher as professional, higher education academic as professional, was very exclusive. The membership to this profession was exclusive. It was very conservative in practice, very self-interest oriented, regulated initially through by the expert or self, and later on by some external regulator only. With very slow pace or slow change ever happening in the field, and very reactive. So if there was some external pressure, then the professional would react to it. The new professionalism in the view of the emerging technologies and the focus on new forms of teaching and learning, it demands new professionalism, inclusive membership, where there collaborative and collegial learning takes place in the scholarship of teaching. There is public ethical code of practice, which is announced or pronounced by maybe the regulator or by the higher education institution. There is also in the new professionalism expectation of this activist orientation amongst the teachers, that teachers who are thinking ahead, they are bringing in new dimension to their discipline, and they are flexible, progressive, responsive to change, of course, but self-regulating, policy active. So there are in the new professionalism, you would see that if you compare it with the old professionalism, there are some inherent contradictions as well, where there is the responsive to the change, to the demands of the market, to the policy makers, but at the same time self-regulating, policy active, as well as inquiry oriented and focused on knowledge building. So the new professional has to grapple with these contradictions as we work in the higher education institutions. The Government of India launched the National Mission on Teachers and Teaching, also known as the Pandit Madan Mohan Malviya National Missions for Teachers and Teaching, which directly addresses this issue of quality enhancement in teaching, learning and research in higher education institutions, focusing specifically on the teachers. And this initiative was started under the Justice Verma Commission on Teacher Education in tripartite collaboration with the National Council for Teacher Education, MHRD and the UGC. And under this scheme, the national mission, new schools of education have been proposed, so where the schools can take the mandate of the expertise or their expertise to a next level, to a higher level, explore the new areas in which the work hasn't been done yet, but there is some expertise available at the institutional level. So new schools could be started based on that expertise. Multiple departments and centers are established. Many human resource development centers are also established under this new scheme: Center for Excellence in Specific Subjects, inter-university centers for teacher education, institutes of academic leadership, teaching learning centers, faculty development centers, and many innovations and awards have also been instituted under this scheme. So this is a 900 crore scheme which has a very bigger mandate of improving the overall quality of higher education. Besides the launching of the scheme, there are certain other aspects which are being taken care of by the government. Study web of active learning by young and aspiring minds is one such initiative which introduces the provision of online and blended learning in higher education institutions. So the colleges and university departments now have to offer to their students the choice to accumulate up to 20% of the total credit hours in subjects through massive online courses. Now what does it mean for higher education professional, for the teachers working in higher education institutions? This means that there is need for orientation, training, continuous professional development for the teaching, learning and research and pedagogy of blended learning, which is a new thing which is coming to into the higher education institutions at a large scale. And therefore, the government has also started with this annual refresher program in teaching called ARPIT, and similarly a global initiative for academic network GYAN has been launched. So various reforms in the continuous professional development of teachers in higher education have been launched by the government. So friends, now let us spend some time on this particular slide which depicts a proposed continuous professional development framework for the teachers in higher education. And it talks about faculty pathways for professional learning. If you look at on the top right hand side of this, there is the description of job profile, teaching, research, extension, organization and management, followed by self-regulation, self-actualization, professional freedom, personal security of the teachers. Then also the fact that this framework takes into consideration the fact that the credit based area specific resource and delivery strategic self-learning, workshop, roundtables, seminars, distance and online learning, inclusive and interdisciplinary workshops are important for the professional development of teachers. Mentoring by the seniors, peers and other experts also forms the part of this framework. Quality assurance at the institutional level, the institutional achievements also form the part of the CPD framework. So this is a very comprehensive proposed framework. Also, a teacher has to be part of the professional associations, the professional resources and databases also connect to this CPD framework, so that we know that what is the mandate of the government, what is it that the professional associations want and how they interconnect with each other. Essential innovative practice, student engagement, ICT and open resources, reformative assessment strategies, accreditation and quality assurance also form part of the CPD framework. Context and contemporary changes in higher education. So it has to be, because a teacher has to be responsive always to the changing scenario in higher education, and therefore the contemporary changes are also important part of the CPD framework. The national CPD policy, professional ethics and codes of conduct, organizational and learning climate is again part of the CPD framework, along with the new transformative professionalism that we discussed. Now, if you look at all these boxes, and you must have realized that there are overlaps in all of these aspects which are coming together in the frame, which means that the continuous and professional development of higher education professionals is a intricate, it's a complex aspect, phenomenon, which is linked through the regulators, funders, the stakeholders, the students, the work that teachers do, the way the teachers understand their work and many other aspects, so on. So in one of the upcoming researches at the Center for Policy Research in Higher Education, we aim to look at the professionalization of higher education academics and how these aspects are reflected in the CPD experience, the continuous professional development experience of the higher education professionals. So as I had already told you, that the teaching and research, they need to be balanced in their teacher workload. Discipline specific teaching as well as scholarship of teaching learning need to gel well in working of a professional. Discipline, research and publication should be considered as important as research and publication in the discipline pedagogy teaching learning, and should be equally credited for in the assessment of the performance indicators and reward, tenure and promotions of the higher education faculty. The CPD needs to be seen as a lifelong activity of a professional within a flexible, need-based, modular and diverse pathway. and these strategies have to be linked to the evidence-based teaching, internal organizational quality assurance, and institutional accreditation and ranking. So, if we look at the stages of the CPD pathway, at the institutional and national database is at the base of this CPD pathway, which is credit based, evidence based, quality based and transformative. But we are saying that this is individual CPD pathway because it has to be need based according to the professional requirement felt by the or professional need of the individual academic. It has to be flexible, autonomous and evidence based. So stage 1 is something which is very basic for any higher education professional, which is the discipline, pedagogy and research based professional development. The stage 2 is pedagogy and research at the higher level. Then the general professional learning is important. Stage 3 deals with the discipline of pedagogy and research, generic professional learning. Again, this is a kind of the continuous where new developments in the field are realized and they are embedded again or imbibed into the pedagogy and research in the development of the higher education professional, leading to the professional learning. So, development, as one would understand, is not one time input and therefore one time output. It's a kind of a continuous process of professional learning where the higher education professional continuously engages with her practice continuously. The individual progress in one's own professional learning pathway is therefore linked to the institutional database of faculty progress and achievement, as also to the national database repository. Unlike the previous academic staff college scheme, which used to be before the HRDCs came into existence, this formulation, proposed formulation here links together the individual progress, action research, quality of teaching learning, and institutional requirement of evidence-based teaching and professional teacher development. This could be considered to lead to higher order of professional learning, which currently the system lacks. This model of CPD goes beyond the transmission model, that is, training, award bearing, understanding the deficit and then cascade strategies. The CPD pathway should traverse through the transitional model, and which is the strength of this model, comprising standard based mentoring and community of practice strategies to the transformative model based on action research and transformative professional strategies. What we find, however, and it's a huge issue which needs to be addressed by the funders, by the governments, by the regulators, that one of the CPRG studies conducted by me shows that there are vacancies at the level of faculty and staff, which lead to regular faculty taking up administrative roles in their institutions. At the same time, because the higher education, the permanent regular faculty is engaged with the administrative role, the whole load of teaching workload comes or is shouldered by the ad hoc and guest faculties at the higher education institutions. But that is one part of the issue. The other part, major part of the issue is that the continuous professional development programs or any part of professional development program is available only to the regular faculty at the higher education institutions. So there you can see this conflict where large number of ad hoc and guest faculty are engaged in teaching, especially at the undergraduate level. They do not have access to the professional development opportunities. So changing context of learning also demand academics to change the teaching learning practices and move towards the learning outcome based accountability measures. Globally this is happening. There is a pressure on the higher education institutions, and therefore the regulators, the funders of the higher education institutions have to think about making provisions, making investment for the quality of provisions In the higher education institutions, the infrastructure, the libraries, the faculty, as well as investing into the professional development of all the higher education faculty working in their institutions, taking care of the teaching and research in the higher education institutions, irrespective of their conditions of their tenure. Institutional investments, and we would like to underline here, institutional investments play an important role in the professionalization of academics, and these in turn impact the quality of higher education institutions. Thank you very much. Hope you enjoyed the lecture. We have some interaction questions for you. We request you to think about your own professional development in higher education as in higher education academic, and write a reflective note on your professional development. You can include in the note reflection on what professional development opportunities that you received and the opportunities which were mandatory. You attended those courses, programs, and benefited from them because they were mandated by the institution or the regulator. What professional opportunities did you seek out on your own, depending on your own self-assessment of your professional needs? And what impact did this professional learning make in your understanding of your work? So if you reflect on your professional development and do this note, this would help you to link with the aspects of the CPD framework that we discussed today. If your professional development needs are not met, then what kind of institutional arrangements should be made or could be made to address those needs? So write also a note, who do you think should be addressing those and how that those professional needs should be met. Also discuss the challenges which pose hurdle and probable solutions that you can think of that can enable you as a professional to work better in your higher education institutions. Thank you very much. You can write to me at anupampachori@nipa.ac.in.